Scientifically speaking, we're sharing the view. From labs to clinics, breakthrough shining through. With minds that inspire and stories to unfold. Scientifically speaking, the future's being told.
Welcome to another episode of Scientifically Speaking with Christine on Oz Arab Media. And thank you to Laurent Hair Salon for taking care of my hair as always. Today, we're talking about Parkinson's disease, not just from a medical perspective, but through a deeply human lens. Our guest holds many titles, but today she is Carol Ferrone, who has written, produced, and features in the documentary Shaking Not Stirred. The film follows her brother-in-law, Ralph, and offers a rare, intimate look into daily life with Parkinson's, capturing both the challenges and the resilience behind the condition. The documentary is set to premiere on the 28th of April at the Palace Cinema, Moore Park, with all proceeds going towards Parkinson's research through Shake It Up Australia. Carol, welcome to the show.
Christine, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Of course, we are so glad to have you here with holding so many titles like you mentioned, one of them being an amazing friend. Today, we'd like to showcase the documentary you're working on. So let me start from the very beginning and ask you what inspired you to create Shaking Not Stirred and how does it personally touch you?
Well, this is a very deeply personal project of mine, and what started it, I'm actually a brand ambassador for Shake It Up Australia, which is a Parkinson's research charity. But this journey actually started about 12 years ago when my brother-in-law was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. It came out of nowhere. And for me, I wanted to unveil what Parkinson's is about and what living with Parkinson's is about, not only for the sufferer, but for the family.
Amazing. And that's what we're really going to talk about today. For those who may not fully understand what Parkinson's disease is, and we know you're not a doctor, but from your personal experience and the family experience, how would you describe it in simple terms?
So Parkinson's is a neurological condition and it affects how the brain communicates with the body. So a lot of people, when they hear the word Parkinson's, they automatically assume it's the shakes.
Yes.
But it's so much more than that. Not only are there physical symptoms, but there are mental and psychological symptoms. And like I said, it doesn't only affect the sufferer, but the family and the carers.
When your family first faced this diagnosis, you mentioned 12 years ago, what were the biggest misconceptions or surprises you knew about this condition?
The biggest misconception was actually the shakes. So my brother-in-law, Ralph, never had the shakes. How it actually started was he lost his sense of smell.
Oh.
Yes.
That would be really related to COVID nowadays.
Yes, it was before COVID. Yes, so like I said, it was about 12 years ago. Yeah. And he often describes it. He used to come home to his wife's cooking and his wife would say, I put a bolognese on, I've cooked fish or something for dinner. And he used to say, I can't smell that. But he used to dismiss it. And then that was probably about 13 years ago. Then 12 years ago, his granddaughter was born. So they were very young grandparents, very young parents. And they were FaceTiming my niece who lived in Melbourne at the time. And as you do with babies, hello, you do. And he actually couldn't make those movements, those fine motor skill movements, just those little, hi.
Okay.
And that was what triggered something in his mind. And he thought, I can't actually move my fingers properly.
Wow.
And he took himself off to the doctor because there are no actual definitive tests for Parkinson's. You can't go off and get a blood test like you can for high cholesterol or, blood pressure or anything.
And your documentary gives viewers a close look at the daily life with Parkinson's. What are some of the challenges people don't usually see or talk about from your perspective?
Well, things like losing your fine motor skills, the changes in speech, or even the effort it takes sometimes just to get out of bed. We talk about the everyday things like, you know, for you and I, perhaps we love to exercise. We love going on our daily walks. But for us, it's about looking good, you know, feeling good in our clothing or fitting into a dress for an upcoming gala. But for people with Parkinson's disease, they need that daily exercise just to be able to walk every day or just to be able to make their coffee. That daily exercise routine keeps that body, I guess, the way I describe it, so their body remembers how to do it, remembers how to walk, remembers how to smile. I don't want to give too much away, but there's a moment in the documentary where Ralph talks about he had to relearn how to smile, how to just simple things like that are so important.
Goosebumps. That's very interesting. I myself never knew that Parkinson went that far, Carol. The film also highlights resilience and a lot of humor, of course, knowing you. Why was it important for you to show both the struggles and the human side of this journey?
I think because there are so many difficult moments. With Parkinson's, there is no cure at the moment, although the way research is going, and the biggest reason I did this is to raise funds for research.
Yes.
They are between 2 to 5 years away from a very big breakthrough, which is good. But what I wanted to show is there are a lot of difficult moments. And because we don't know what is ahead and everybody's experience is different, I can only speak for my brother-in-law's and our family's experience, but if you don't address it with humour and positivity, the other side of that is a very dark one, or can be a dark one. And I'd be doing him a disservice if I didn't say that there aren't dark moments, because there are. But we're very lucky. We're a very big, close family. There's over 40 of us. So he has a really good support network. He's got a good support network with some groups that he's a member of. My sister-in-law speaks to a lot of support groups herself, both together with Ralph and on her own. And we do laugh about it sometimes. And he likes to joke about himself. He talks about, you know, people often think I'm drunk.
Oh, wow.
You know, when he goes out. And he says, no, I've got Parkinson's.
So he jokes about it so that he doesn't go into the serious
you know,
part
he's,
of it.
because, again, you can go down a dark path, but that's never a good thing.
That's never a good thing, definitely. How has this experience, Carol, changed your understanding of caregiving and the role of families in managing such chronic conditions?
It's really it's increased my empathy for caregivers. You know, we often focus on the sufferers.
Yes.
But the caregivers need, if not equal support, almost more support. Because they're along for the ride.
Mentally, are we talking?
Exactly, absolutely. Because caregiving isn't just about physical support, it's also about emotional support, because they're watching their loved one decline. And that's really, really rough. I talk to my sister-in-law, if not daily, then 3 or 4 times a week. And the first thing I say to her is, how are you? How are you doing? And she'll often say to me, oh, it's not about me. And I say, it is. Yes. You know, they were in the prime of their life. They were at a point where, like me, they got married young, they had their kids young. So they were at a point where their kids were grown, out of the home, they were travelling, living their best life. And then they were hit with this, and everything changed. And the future was and is very uncertain. Now, don't get me wrong, they still travel. They still try and live their best life. And when you meet Ralph on screen, you'll see that he's quite amazing. However, things are very different now. They do face an uncertain future, and everything is revolved around his physical therapy, his medication, his moods. And it is difficult.
That's very interesting. Now, Carol, filming something so personal, I'm sure, is very difficult. Like, talking about it is not easy. How about filming it and putting it out to the public? How did you balance storytelling with the respect to the family's privacy, if I can say?
Look, it was always, obviously, I had his consent and the family's consent. You know, I've been a member of the Ferrone family for 35 years.
Amazing.
So there's always that trust and that relationship there.
Yes.
I did try to push the boundaries a couple of times,
Yes.
and there were a few moments there where Ralph said, cut. You know,
yeah.
I don't want to go there, because I did, not only did I wanted to be respectful and open and honest with him, but with the audience as well.
Yes.
It's not all roses, and I wanted the audience to see that.
Yes.
Ralph is actually a very positive person, which is really great. However,
You put him out of his comfort zone.
I did,
kind of,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll be honest and say he didn't let me.
Oh.
And that was actually a bit disappointing,
Yeah.
because there were some moments where I thought, I left that scene and I thought, oh, I wish I could have taken that further. But out of respect for him and the family, I let it go.
You let it go. Fair enough. Look, we definitely respect everyone's, even people listening to us might say, I wish she didn't mention that. She did hit a soft spot. But I mean, if we don't do this, we don't give awareness. What emotional impact, Carol, do you hope the documentary is leaving with the audience who may not be familiar with Parkinson's, definitely?
Look, I want them to understand that Parkinson's, it's not just a condition or an illness.
Right.
It's a human condition that not only affects relationships, it affects identity, everyday life, but also the extended family. Like my mother-in-law, his mum, she's 91.
Oh, wow.
And she's healthy mind and body, thank goodness. But she's seeing her child decline, and we're both mothers.
Yes.
It's not the circle of life, or it shouldn't be like that. And for her to see her child, and you know, she said more than once, this is my little boy, and it's her eldest son. And she says it shouldn't be like that, it should be me. So for people to understand, and also, again, there is no cure at this stage. So unlike some other illnesses, which I'll give an example like cancer, I know that not everybody has a positive ending with cancer, but generally we know that we have treatment, and a lot of people make it to the end with a positive outcome.
Yes.
At this stage, there is no positive outcome with Parkinson's. This could be 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Right.
So people need to understand that this condition, and the people that are living with it, along with the carers, don't know the outcome, don't know the future.
But do you think from your personal perspective, it can lead to results like cancer? Did you hear cases that it might go there?
No.
Yeah.
This is a very different kind of disease or illness.
Yes.
It is a decline of the body and the mind, but where research is headed, and I believe very soon, and this is why we do need the vital research and funds.
Of course.
It's headed to a point where they can stop it in its tracks of where it is.
That's amazing.
So in Ralph's case, potentially stop it where he is now, which would be amazing.
Okay.
Because he's not too bad.
Right.
Or somebody that is 10 years ago, or where that is first diagnosed. If we have a breakthrough in a couple of years, somebody that has just been diagnosed.
Early diagnosis can just stop it.
Or perhaps has only just lost their sense of smell.
Right.
If we could stop it at this point, that's not too bad.
Well, definitely not too bad at all. How important, Carol, do you think it is to have awareness when it comes to conditions like Parkinson's, not just for patients, but for the wider community as well?
Well, look, it leads to early awareness, better support, more funding, and obviously more progress into finding a cure, I think. And obviously for the greater community, I'm not saying everybody who loses their smell is going to get Parkinson's.
No.
There are so many different symptoms. But if you are experiencing anything, look, anybody that watches the documentary or sees this interview or the social media clips that we will be putting out, if anything sounds remotely familiar, search it up on the internet. Go to your doctor. Early early detection or early diagnosis means you can start early therapy, early medication, and slow this down.
Amazing. I agree with you, Carol. Everyone who feels a slight change in their health, just straight away check your doctor and catch it earlier as possible. Now, let's talk a little bit about the documentary.
Yes.
The premiere is to be on the 28th. Of April, and it's not just a screening, as you mentioned throughout, it's also a fundraising event. So why was it so important to connect film with research and action?
So
Like you always do.
Yes. So as you know, I work in television. That's
Yes.
my thing and my joy in life and being a storyteller. So April is Parkinson's Awareness Month. So this is the biggest fundraising month of the year for Parkinson's in Australia. I believe worldwide, but don't quote me on that. Okay. So for me personally, I thought, how can I use my skills as a TV personality and a storyteller to not only get this story out, but to raise funds for Shake It Up Australia, which I am a brand ambassador for. So this actually started off as a social media series in my head. And then I thought, when I was writing this, I thought, you know what, this would make a great documentary. So what I did, created this, we've filmed it, and the 28th of April is the premiere. We've hired a cinema. 100% of the ticket sales, donations, sponsorships go to Shake It Up Australia. Amazing. And not only will it raise funds, but obviously raise awareness for the illness.
That's great. We are looking forward to being there on the day. What role do organizations like Shake It Up Australia, in your opinion, play in advancing the treatment and hopefully finding a cure?
Well, apart from supporting carers and sufferers, they directly fund research. So 100% of all the funds that go to Shake It Up Australia go directly to research. They are full non-for-profit. I know for a fact that every cent that goes to Shake It Up goes directly to funding to stop it in its tracks and find a cure.
Amazing. They're the bridge to heaven, if we can say. After this film, Carol, what changes would you like to see in how Parkinson is actually understood and supported in Australia? Let's start.
I think the biggest change I'd like to see is definitely a deeper level of understanding about the disease, and that Parkinson's is not a one-size-fits-all. It's different for everybody. There are people in wheelchairs. There are people that walk and talk and live their best life and don't have the shakes like my brother-in-law, but in his case, his illness has manifested more, I guess, if I can do him as much respect as I can, but more psychologically.
Right.
To give you an example, paranoia and schizophrenia is one of the symptoms of the disease that is unseen.
That can target it. Well, we hope that, the organizations do their best, Shake It Up Australia, and of course, the efforts like yours that can do a great change, and we're looking forward to it. Now, before we end the show, I usually do in my show a little quiz or test, if we can say, and we bust some myths. Now, we're going to take this from your perspective, not from a medical perspective or from Ralph's experience. So are you ready? I'll ask you a couple of statements. Just tell me true or false and maybe a little why. Ready?
Okay.
Let's go. Okay. Parkinson's only affects older people.
False. You can have early onset Parkinson's from your 40s, 50s, and possibly a little bit younger.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Secondly, if someone doesn't have a visible tremor, it's not a serious Parkinson's.
False. There are many other symptoms of Parkinson's disease, like I mentioned, loss of smell.
Second one, living with Parkinson's is harder than what people usually see day to day.
I'm going to say true, because again, a lot of the symptoms are not physical ones. There are mental and psychological symptoms. So I will say that is true.
That is true. Next one. Once you're diagnosed, your independence is basically over.
That is definitely false. People live full independent lives for many years, often decades. They travel, they entertain, they drive, and live their best life despite their diagnosis.
Amazing. That is amazing. Lucky last, there's nothing you can do. It's just about managing the decline.
Again, false. While there is currently no cure, there's medication, there's therapy, there's a lot that you can do.
Amazing. Carol, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and effort today. Before we go anywhere, if you'd like to tell your audience about the premiere, where, what time, the camera's yours.
Please buy tickets to the premiere of Shaking Not Stirred. Our premiere is on the 28th of April at Palace Cinema Moore Park in Sydney. 100% of ticket sales go to Shake It Up Australia, which is a Parkinson's research charity co-founded in conjunction with the Michael J. Fox Foundation in the USA. I would love to see you there. You will get to meet me and my family. And we are 80% sold of our tickets, so get in quick. We will put the link in, hopefully, with this interview. And thank you for watching. Mwah.
Amazing, Carol. Lovely as usual. I really love to say thank you so much for the powerful and personal story you're putting out there for the wider community as well, not only for yourself. So thanks once again.
Thank you.
No worries. Before we go anywhere, I always like to say a little thing to our listeners. Today, stories like this remind us that behind every diagnosis is a person, a family, and a journey that deserves understanding and support. Shaking Not Stirred premieres on the 28th of April, and every ticket contributes to research that could change lives. We are hoping to see you all there. This was Scientifically Speaking with Christine on Oz Arab Media. Until next time.